Hey guys, welcome to the first ever OP Poker podcast. James, can you believe it? We're doing a podcast.
Not quite.
Not quite. It doesn't feel real. I've always wanted to do a podcast, but I always thought that I'd be really good at it. But is it kind of like when you try to write a novel and everybody thinks that they could write like a best-selling novel, but when they try, they realize they're
Yeah.
shit? Is that what it's
Well,
like?
I'm glad that you're taking the host role right now.
The host
That's
role.
good for me, 'cause I'm not sure how to do it. But
Okay,
let's
well,
go.
we're going to try our best. Okay, guys, this is being released slightly late, but it's all good. The reason being that we had some technical issues. It turns out that it's very difficult to record desktop audio on a Mac, which we discovered at great length, didn't we, James?
Yeah, I can't believe how unuseful they are. Like, I used to
Unuseful.
have a Mac back in 2000 when I was about 11 years old,
Yeah.
and I thought it was the most beautiful, amazing thing.
Right, right.
But now it's just a pile of turd.
Yeah, well, okay. If anybody can correct us, please do so. But basically, we were trying to record desktop audio for a while, and at some point, we were trying to use Audacity to record it, and Audacity had at the very top that like the facility to record desktop audio had been removed from the software. So it used to be there, but now it no longer is. But anyway, we're online now, so it's all good. It's coming out a little bit late, but this is our first podcast. I hope you guys enjoy it. James, tell me about the topics that we have outlined that we want to talk about today.
All right, throughout this podcast, and hopefully in the links below, we'll add, what are they called? You know, the link things? What are they called?
And in the panels?
Yeah, what are they called? You know, like, so you say in 10 minutes and 30 seconds, we will be discussing.
I got you. Yeah, yeah. Like so in YouTube where it highlights like the specific parts.
Exactly.
I know what you mean.
Hopefully we'll have that. So
Okay,
the
cool.
topics that we are definitely going to go over would be power cards and their balance.
Okay.
The next one would be game length,
Yep.
bots,
Yep.
overall edge in the game,
Yeah.
anything that we think are missing qualities of the game that we want to be involved,
Right.
and then buy-in levels and how profitable this game could be in the long run.
All right. Sounds good to me. Okay. So first
Yeah.
topic is power cards and balance. James, go.
All right. Well, I'd recently just almost completed an article about how power cards are very
Unbalanced.
how do I put it? But yeah, I mean,
But
if you look at
when you
the-
say unbalanced, you don't mean unbalanced in like a Hearthstone unbalanced way. You mean that there are certain powers that come at the same cost of other powers that have less usefulness, right?
yeah. So if you look at a card like Clone and you look at a card like X-Ray, it's the easiest example for me because they're both the same point cost. So X-Ray is the point cost of 2, and Clone is the point cost of 2 as well.
Yeah.
But X-Ray you can use in nearly every scenario, and it's great. Clone is impossible to use in a lot of circumstances because no one's used a power card yet.
Yeah.
So and you're not really sure who's going to use what and how useful it's going to be throughout the hand.
Right.
And not only that, after you've cloned it, you then have to pay the full power cost again.
Yeah.
So clearly, these cards are not balanced very well at all.
Right. Right. Okay. And,
Right.
and so as a suggestion, we were talking about maybe trying to bring in some sort of Hearthstone effects where if you were to play clone and you cloned an engineer, then engineer would be a zero cost card that turn or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could go along that route, but also throughout the article that I just wrote, I was realizing that they don't need to be that balanced. They do need to all be useful in some way, but they don't need to be completely one-to-one in usefulness. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because just like how we get given a card like aces or kings or 7-2 off, it's poker. Everyone knows poker is about how to best play your hand. So you maximize the EV in the hand you're given.
Right.
Now, obviously, this works for playing cards, and I don't see why it cannot work for the power cards.
Yeah.
As long as the power level for the best power card doesn't mean an automatic win.
Right, right. So I think we read something about the game developers were talking about how they had a card that they called Zombie or something originally in the original version of the game, and
Mm-hmm.
that power would bring opponents back into the hand if they had folded or
Yep.
something like that. And then in the end, they discovered that it was basically like an insta-win card for whatever reason, for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of game-breaking. But we're not saying
Yep.
that the game is unbalanced in a game-breaking way. We're just saying that maybe the best way to play EMP isn't just its face value. Maybe the best way to play
Yep.
EMP in some situations is to burn it. Or in some situations, disintegrate is the bomb and it's going to totally kill in a hand. But in other situations, you need to play disintegrate differently.
Yep.
In the same way that in a game of Texas Hold'em, if you've got a complete whale on your table, you want to be playing a lot wider because you know that they're going to make more mistakes. But against a better player, you might not want to play 8-9 suited because you know they're going to put you to the test all the time.
Yeah, something along that lines.
Something like that, right?
The fact of the matter is that right now, all of the power cards around are, apart from, I would say, clone, are quite similar to each other. Like there's not a big disparity like in Hold'em where
Right.
you've got aces and 7-2 off.
Right. Yeah.
Where 7-2 off is not going to win, like it's only going to win 18% of the time or whatever against aces. It's not that bad, but it almost is that bad with clone. But I think overall it's definitely a playable game where you still get enough edge and there's no game breaking card.
Cool. Right. Yeah.
So
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
I think it's perfectly reasonable for them to just pump out new cards, and as long as they're clearly not game breaking, and
Yeah.
as long as the power cost is semi what it should be, if let's say it's a 3-cost card that should actually be a 4-cost card,
Right.
which I think Intel probably should be a 4-cost card,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter because it just means it's a stronger 3-cost card than another one.
Yeah,
you know?
so it's going to adjust the meta of the game. It's not necessarily going to adjust like the overall win rate of a game, like a game-breaking card.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would agree with that. I think.
Yeah, as long as the best card that is brought out is not as good as it's not as better than Intel is now,
Yeah.
then we know that it won't be game breaking.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be interested to see like how they would test that. I mean, I guess to a certain degree, they've been using the play money games as a kind of like tester. But
Mhm.
I think also we know for a fact that testing anything other than maybe the speed of a game, like they've already tried, which we might get into in a second, it's difficult to see the effect of a card when half the player pool isn't really playing the game seriously. In the same way that going from any sort of play money game, you're going to get a different player pool to, a real money game.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe testing. I mean, you know how Overwatch has like a player test realm. Like they have an entire server dedicated to people that want to test out the new changes to a game.
Oh wow!
But I think
Didn't know that.
but I think that yeah. So for example, like basically, in order to test the game changes and also to play in the actual gaming server, you have to have 2 entire copies of the same game, because the player test realm allows players to go and try out new players who they haven't like completely tested through yet, and that kind of thing. The biggest disparity between that comparison though, is that on the player test realm you've got a bunch of people that are dedicated to making the game much better, whereas I think maybe in the play money games, I think a lot of people are just there to mess around, so they don't have that same kind of like we're really trying to put this new change to the test. You know what I mean?
I think that the play money is useful to a degree
Yeah.
because bugs
Yeah.
are very, very common
Right.
and really easy to sort out in the fact that people obviously see it and know it and tell them.
Yeah.
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 Finer tuning things, I don't think is going to work.
Yeah,
So,
I
for example, looking at the new anti-structure they brought in on the play money,
Yeah.
I doubt there is much of a difference in the overall play time, just because the amount of people that just decide to jam all in or whatever.
Right.
If we just quickly go to that, the whole idea of bringing the antis in.
Okay.
I first thought that it was a good idea because it should speed up the game.
Yeah.
But then I realized that it probably doesn't speed up the game, and I'm going to quickly take it apart as to why that would occur.
Okay.
So because the pot size is now, there's the button has to put in an ante. It means that he needs to be more willing to play cards, right?
Yeah.
Same with the small blind, and slightly less so with the big blind. And what that creates is a lot more multi-way pots in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will change much in play money because everyone wants to just play every hand. But in real money, this will create a lot of more freeway pots. And freeway pots in this game take a lot longer than heads-up
they're
ones.
slow as fuck, right?
Because there is very little incentive to put money into the pot until you've got a monster hand.
Right.
You're just putting yourself at too much risk.
Yeah.
So it's slow and passive, and it brings the game length quite. How do I say it? It makes the hand length for each hand a lot longer.
Right.
So actually, I think that bringing in the antes probably isn't a good idea if they want to bring down the game length.
Right. I mean, okay, and actually, it's really interesting that you bring that up because there were a couple situations when I was on stream and we were trying to figure out why a certain player was playing so slowly but so deliberately slowly. So I'm not saying we definitely know for sure, but it seemed like the players in question were trying to stream snipe me. And the times that they came closest, because I'm obviously watching the stream in real time and I'm watching the stream on delay as it comes back to me, the only times when they actually had the biggest opportunity to stream snipe me were in three-way pots, where there was some action three ways and then maybe it got down to 2 players on the turn. And then by stretching out their decision time and then folding just before the time bank kicked in, there was 1 or 2 situations where one opponent who may have been stream sniping actually had the opportunity to do so. So the more three-handed pots that we have, I mean, there's just way more decision-making time in this game. It's not like Hold'em. You don't just know, you go, oh, I've got a piece, I'm going to continue, or I don't, and I'm going to fold.
Yeah, this game doesn't encourage c-betting anywhere near as much as Hold'em.
Absolutely, yeah, and the higher frequency of c-betting, we know mathematically we're going to get a higher rate of fold on the flop, which ends the game much faster. Yeah.
Just like when you're heads up, you're more likely to be betting into one player than to 2 others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, the speed, we know something about playing heads up, especially heads up turbo, heads up super turbos, heads up hypers. The average game time there is roughly 5 minutes a game if you're playing a hyper. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're not sure.
Yeah, I think I'm like 14 hands a game.
Right,
I don't know
like
how
that.
long that.
Isn't that funny, that number? I as soon as Oscar broke that down for me, he tried to like work out how much I was making per hand or something, and it was pretty silly.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But yeah, I mean, I think we covered that pretty well, though. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that, James? I feel like that's a pretty good analysis. I mean, I guess maybe what we're trying to say is that if to speed up the game, we have to find a constructive way of making each hand go faster, keeping hands more heads up, I guess, or trying not to incentivize a three-way pot.
Yeah, I think that if they want the game length, if they want the game and the gameplay and the general structure of the game to stay fairly similar to what it is now, I guess because of all the coding to making the game, that's probably what they want to do.
Yeah.
They just want to make something so that it gets over faster, right?
Yeah.
Without taking away the possibility for strategy and edge and whatnot.
Right, absolutely.
Right? So if they want to do that, they're going to have to look at ways of stopping freeway pots occurring, because freeway pots are just so much longer than heads up.
Well, I mean, okay, I have to go back to like my absolute original argument, right? Was so they thought that bringing in antes would speed up the game, which theoretically it would in a normal game of Hold'em, right? But actually, what we're saying is by making the game three-way more often, you're slowing it down. I believe the solution is what I suggested originally: keep the format the way it is now, but then maybe start at a higher blind level and then smooth it out at the end, like having 150 300 instead of 200 400, or I mean the jump from 100 200, instead of going 100 200 to 200 400, going 100 200 then 150 300. So the blinds go up faster but more smoothly than they do now, Would you agree with that, James? I mean, I guess it's just a test thing, really. They have to see what works, but
I think that the overall crowd would not be happy if you immediately went to, I don't know, 15 big blinds deep.
yeah.
I think I personally would be okay with it.
What? Yeah.
But the people who are going to be playing it in the first place and then promoting it to their friends probably wouldn't promote it if immediately you're 15 big blinds deep.
Yeah.
They would just presume that it's unbeatable and then ignore the game.
Right. By the way, guys, I'm sorry about the sound quality. James is a little bit scratchy on his side, but we're doing this via Skype, so there's some technical difficulties. Okay, so I feel like we've covered that, and actually we kind of started spilling into our second topic, which is game length, and I feel like we've touched on those pretty well now.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so if my suggestion was to smooth it out, and just to finish that one up completely, if my suggestion was to make the initial stack depth a little bit shorter and then smooth it out at the end, what do you think your suggestion would be to fix the game time / skill edge ratio?
I think you could. There are two ways you could go about it.
Okay.
One of them could be that the small blind does not play a small blind, so you just have a big blind.
Whoa.
That would to completely incentivize the the pot to be more heads up most of the time.
Wow, that's bold.
Right?
Yeah.
There's that possibility.
Okay.
So it'd be more like a bring in, like
right.
stud or
Right.
Yeah, something along those lines. The ante and then the bring in.
Okay.
That would incentivize more of a heads up.
Yep.
Pot.
Yep.
I think that having the game freeway is something that they really don't want to change.
Okay.
Because in the future, they just want to make sure that. So the main problem with heads up is that people can make a lot of money off a recreational player. Let's say you're a professional and you're playing against a recreational player. They are winning too high a rate in heads up, and that's why they kind of got rid of heads up on most poker sites.
Yeah.
The professionals are taking so much out before they're even raking much at all.
Right.
So they make it free-handed to make sure that if the games were getting tough in some ways, then there would be 2 regs and 1 recreational player, or something along those lines, where it's like both people are still able to make money, but they're actually playing some rake as well, which makes sense because then the game doesn't die really quickly.
Okay.
So I think that they're going to keep it free-handed almost for definite.
Okay.
So you need to be...
So your first, you said you had there were 2 ways to do it. Your first suggestion was to make only 1 big blind and then have the small blind be a big a bring in. Excuse me.
No, just the big blind be a bring in.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Something along those lines.
Okay.
Or the second suggestion would be that you can only raise pre-flop until there's only 2 people left in the pot.
How would that work?
So if you're in the button, you make a min raise.
Yeah.
The small blind can only either min free bet
or fold,
or go all in or fold.
Okay.
No, he can do anything, but it has to be a raise to all in.
Okay.
He can't just flat.
Okay.
Right. So let's say he does want to play the pot, so he makes a min free bet.
Yeah.
Then it goes to the big blind. If he wants to get involved, now he would have to min free bet over that or better.
Okay.
Yeah? Just so that it makes sure that by the time the flop comes down, it's heads up.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So eventually, someone will fold, and then it'll be heads up. Or everyone goes all in pre-flop.
Of course, yeah.
Which is also...
I mean, I like number 3 the best, just gamble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
well,
I mean, those are some very, very bold suggestions. The only thing I would say in response to that is that I know that the developers said really early on that they wanted to make sure that the poker element remained intact.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know if having a, I mean, you like you said, in some stud formats, there, you know, you've only got one big blind or whatever, or whatever you call it. You've
Bring
only
it
got
back.
one bet in, forced bet, and then you can have a bring in. So I guess it doesn't remove the poker factor. Uh, but okay, I mean, you know, we've got some bold suggestions there. Maybe the dev team can draw, you know, a little piece of everything we said there, and they can come up with a better solution. But we'd really like to see
Yeah, I mean those solutions are pretty.
pretty bold.
I think that the second one that I suggested is probably would actually probably be all right. So for the most part, what would happen is the button would min raise, the small blind would fold, and then the big blind can play
Yeah,
normally.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, but then, but then, post flop, once it's heads up, does it play normally, or is it the same
yeah,
structure all the way? Yeah.
completely.
Okay. Okay.
It's just as soon as the pot gets heads up,
Yeah.
it goes to normality.
Okay.
While there's the possibility of a three-way pot pre-flop,
Yeah.
then you can only be raising the initial bet because
Okay.
free. It's just to make sure that post-flop onwards is heads up because otherwise the hands just take so
Yeah.
bloody long.
Dude, seriously though, like, okay, let's assume what you just suggest was reality, right? That second suggestion. Can you imagine the pre-flop charts you could make for that kind of shit? That would be unbelievable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be solved. Like pre-flop would be solved. I mean, obviously, like, oh, I mean, then how do the cards come into play? I mean, I guess they remain the same, but
It would not be solved. It would be the opposite of solved. It would be like a complete minefield.
no, that's what as soon as I remembered that we had power cards, I realized, yeah, there's no way. But can you imagine like when like you could choose to play EMP after the 12 bet or something
Yeah,
ridiculous?
exactly.
That would
Exactly.
certainly be interesting. That would
It
certainly be
would
interesting.
it would create a very fun dynamic.
Can you imagine if we invented like a whole new set of golden rules, like you never EMP pre-flop until it's been six bet or something
Yeah.
ridiculous like that. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
exactly.
before we go too far off the rails, I know we're gonna get rinsed for those suggestions, but that's cool. I don't mind that. Let's go on to our next topic. I feel like we've hit we've hit our first two topics, so they sort of spilled into each other. Our the next topic is bots. Tell me about bots, James.
Well, right now, of all the games that you could possibly play,
Yeah.
every single poker game that I can think of,
Yeah.
the least likely one to have bots is Power Up.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree, and I feel like I don't think there's any way to argue to well, first of all, it's incredibly unlikely because the game is brand new, or
Hmm.
almost brand new. So,
Yeah.
but what we're saying as well is, can put that aside. Let's say the game is a couple years old, and maybe there's a heads up display of in some way, shape, or form to help with this game. It's
Hmm.
still going to be one of the least solvable games on the market, right?
Easily so. Yeah.
Easily, because there's just so many, especially like you were saying. Okay, so the game isn't like it's not a limit game. So just the vast difference between bet sizing and then, like, you know, playing EMP at some stage or whatever, you know what I mean? It's just there's so many variables to consider. And and if you're thinking in terms of computer programming, you have to make a decision tree. In most cases, you have to make a decision tree to help the program figure out what to do, what's best, right? And if your decisions are bet either one chip or two chips or three chips or four chips or all your chips
Hmm.
or half your chips, and then on top of that, you have to figure out when to play your power card and the effect that's going to have. And then
Yeah.
if you play a card like Engineer, I mean, we're talking about like incredible numbers of variables.
Hmm.
And I don't even, I mean, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, people. But the majority of the games that have been completely solved and computers can beat human beings at are the ones that can be run in simulation. So the robot that beat Doug Polk and his friends or whatever, right? That wasn't a program that they wrote. It was a machine learning, right, James?
So it played against itself
Right.
over and over and over again,
Right.
right?
Yep.
But number one, that was in heads up,
Yep.
whereas this would be a free-handed game.
Yep.
So therefore, the amount of variables on top of it would be
Right.
just really hard
Yep.
for something that does that.
Yeah.
Um, but also, there, it kind of, in the first instances before it started playing the humans,
Yeah.
to keep the game easy enough for it to basically, quote unquote, solve the game.
Right.
They used standard pre-flop sizings, standard post-flop sizings.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But power up, depending on your power cards, depends on how big and how small you want to be betting.
Yeah.
There are so many extra bet size variables.
Yeah.
That even an AI would just be
right.
completely screwed in that spot.
So those simplifications they call abstractions in programming, right? Which is also how many heads-up pros were able to use programs like Peer Solver, PIO Solver, or whatever. Basically, they put into the computer what are the most troublesome flop textures. And then basically they could look at the simulations that were run with those specific flop textures, and they could figure out what the best course of action was in those specific situations. But
only when they've decided on set sizing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly right. So I feel like in that if I mean, we're assuming here, and we always talk about this, but we don't know for sure. But we're pretty sure that one of the main reasons why PokerStars might want to create a game like this is because they wanted to create a format that would be difficult to solve.
Whereas, I think they want to create.
Sorry, carry on.
I think they want to make sure the longevity of the game is assured.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have just slowly gone off of standard online poker because of the fear of bots.
Yeah,
they might not have ever even thought they've played one.
Yeah.
But still, like, it's like a rumor that's going around there's bots.
Right.
On this game, it's going to be very, very, very hard to make a bot.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that Stars is always been pretty. First of all, I know they put a lot of time and effort into spotting bots anyway, right? But I mean, that point aside, I feel like the software that they have in place that is trying to detect bot-like behavior, if there's more input that the computer has to put in order to become a bot and to play another human being at this game, surely it's more opportunities for the bot detection to pick up on some sort of pattern that's happening. You know, if they're clicking on the exact same pixel of a playing card, or or they're taking the exact amount of time deciding on when to play power cards, or I think that's kind of how they do it sometimes.
Yeah, I guess if someone even did somehow create a bot, then there are so much extra spots that they could realize it's a bot or not.
Yeah, right.
So how long it takes to do this or that and the other.
Yeah, and if somebody had actually written a program, and he, instead of trying to solve the game, he just thought he could program the thing to do something that is usually pretty good, like playing Intel pre-flop or something like that, right? There's a certain pattern or an abstraction that he would put into the machine that would make it do something that was incredibly predictable or incredibly regular,
Yeah, it just wouldn't win.
Right. Well, that too, but like, but completely beside that,
Yeah, I don't. There is no way that. First of all, it would take him years to create.
Okay.
And then it wouldn't win, so it would be pretty bad.
Sounds like a winning play to me. I don't know about you, mate.
Well, now I guess we should go on to the topic of Edge now.
I think this is sliding perfectly into Edge.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that over the holidays you were playing a bit of Power Up, and one of the topics that we often get from players and a lot of haters and whatever, they're kind of going, "Oh, okay, well, okay." So some people were initially saying, "Oh, this game is just bingo. This is circus poker. PokerStars. How could you do this to the noble game of poker?" Maybe that's a different topic, but personally, we like the game and we feel like there's an edge. I feel like at this point, we can safely say that there is an edge almost unequivocally, right? We have a sample that's big enough and we're winning, a decent ROI.
Well, so far this Christmas, my ROI is 3%, so not the best. I have to admit.
But
But I've only played 65 games.
okay,
So,
yeah, of course, yeah, that's definitely
but
not a big set. Yeah,
overall, I think I would have to get hold of my PC as well.
yeah,
But I think my ROA is well over 10%.
yeah. I think. Well,
Oh, lifetime.
I mean, in the Bankroll Challenge, we've maintained an ROI over 10%, or even over 15% the whole time, which you guys can. If you haven't done so already, you should go and check that out on Twitch. I upload all of my Bankroll Challenge full streams. We're trying to have maximum transparency here, and I go to some pretty great lengths to try and record everything that happens, so that in the future there's never any doubt to any of our users that we are beating this game, and that you can use the strategies that we're trying to create for your own game. So that's my little plug, guys. Sorry about that on the podcast, but I think that another part of the edge that we need to talk about is, I guess, going back to power cards and balance, right? I feel like the more cards that they introduce that aren't game breaking under the circumstances that you described earlier, James, right? The more cards that they add that aren't completely game breaking, I think will continually add to the edge. Now, I don't know if Stars want to do something where they add a card and then they remove a card, or they just want to add a card and then maybe they get to like 5 power cards. How many? There's 7 right now, James?
9.
9. There's 9 power cards. Excuse me. I don't know if they have a number in mind that they want to add. We don't even know for certain that they want to add more. But I mean, I feel like there's enough hints that they're going to do that, right, James?
That they're almost for sure going to add some in the future.
Okay,
and
yeah.
they also said that for sure at some point in the future they may be taking cards out.
Okay.
We don't know if it's going to be at the same time.
Right.
But I think that even just taking a card out would have a fun change to the game. So
Yeah.
let's say they've just decided to take out Engineer.
Yeah.
Then the whole game is going to be much more. You're going to be able to play a lot more pre-flop, and you're not going to be worried. You're going to be a lot less worried about jamming all in pre-flop.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
If Engineer wasn't there.
I mean,
right?
I think generally speaking, it's going to make the game more aggressive, right?
Yeah, and then on the opposite side of the spectrum, if you took out what else?
Well, if you took out Disintegrate, for example, there would be a lot more flop betting, right? There would be a lot more C betting, and a lot more aggressive, like classic Hold'em strategy would come into it. But I feel like the addition. So this is something that you touched on in your Disintegrate video, which you released on our site, right? You were talking about how Disintegrate as a card, generally people don't think it's that great, right? It's not as cool as everyone thought it would be. It's not as fun as everyone thought it would be. And even though we've all been there and we think, oh, I just wish that spade hadn't have falled, or I wish he didn't hit his straight on the river. Yeah, sure, that's true. But the effect that it has on the game overall is huge. It completely changes how you go about betting.
Yeah.
But the card itself isn't that good. But just by removing it, then suddenly we're going back to, if you have really good Texas Hold'em fundamentals and you feel like you're c-betting on the right textures and stuff like that, it's going to bring the poker strategy back into it more, and it's going to remove more of that power-up strategy. So that's an interesting concept too.
Yeah,
I
think something in the future that'll be awesome would be, like, let's say they've now made 25 different power cards.
Yeah.
Right? At the beginning of each game, you get all 25 power cards, like, face down in a circle, and then each of you can pick 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then overall, there's going to be 9 cards in the game.
Yeah.
And those cards anyone could hit or pick or whatever.
Yes.
That would be so much fun.
Oh my god, that's a sick idea. Developers, I know you're going to listen to this at some point. I mean, I know that might be a couple years in the future, but like, I mean, that kind of reminds me in Hearthstone of the arena format, right? Where you get randomized, you get like 3 random cards of a certain class or a certain kind, and then is that how it works, James? You get 3, and then you have to pick which one you want to keep until you have a full deck.
Something like that, but I want it so that everyone now has the ability to use it.
Right.
So then there's no like meta game where everyone just picks the same cards.
Oh, yeah. So there's still a randomized. I mean, what would be really funny is if each player picked a random card, but the random card went into the opponent's hand or something, just to add
No,
that
no,
like
no. Just so that. So at the beginning of the game, you
yeah,
don't know what power cards
yeah.
are going to be in that game,
Oh, I
but you
see.
know there's going to be 9 power
I
cards,
see. Okay.
right? And each of you can choose 3 of them.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
I see what
So
you're
you
saying.
now you're building the deck that everyone has to
I
use.
see. That's a really cool idea. Okay,
Yeah.
so I like. Let's say I love disintegrate. I pick disintegrate. Now everyone has a disintegrate, and
No,
then
they don't necessarily have it in their hand, but
right,
it's now part of the deck.
but it's in the randomized power of generator.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, mate, that's a cool. I mean, so then there's a certain kind of meta, except nobody's being excluded for not having a specific card,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
nobody's being destroyed because they don't actually know what cards are good. That's a
Yeah. I
really
mean,
clever idea. I
if
love
you
that.
then basically it means that really silly random cards can be used
Yeah.
because it just means that everyone has to use them anyway. So
That's
you're gonna have
oh
to deal.
James. Do you know what? I think that right there is a piece of gold, and I feel like that's the kind of like super fun element that may. Okay, actually, here you go. We're sliding into our next topic, James.
Hmm.
Perfectly sliding into our next. I don't know if you meant for this to happen, but all of them have been flowing really nicely.
Maybe I did. Maybe I
Maybe you
did.
did, yeah. Okay, so sliding into our next topic, which is missing qualities, just as a header. Okay, so continuing that conversation, I feel like that's the kind of fun element that this game could use that would make it more of an esport, that could
Hmm.
make it more of a spectator sport.
Yeah.
And I feel like if that's an angle that SARS wants to come from, again, we're kind of hypothesizing, but I feel like watching 3 of the best poker minds, or the best power-up minds, or however you want to say it, selecting of 25 possible power cards at the start, knowing that certain opponents don't know how to play a card as effectively as you or something like that.
Or knowing that you know how to play a good
Right.
combination.
Right. Okay.
So, for example, EMP, right?
Right. It's a massively misunderstood card. I
Yeah.
certainly misplayed it for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would nearly always go towards that.
Right.
I think it would be a fun, like the deck building aspect of card games is like huge,
Yeah.
and I think that's one thing that's clearly missing from Power Up.
Yeah.
But if you're deck building for everyone,
Yeah.
if everyone is deck building for each other,
Right.
then it's completely feasible and will not create a meta. There
Yeah.
is no reason for there to be a meta.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No?
I mean, like I'm excited just talking about that. I honestly am. I'm not just saying that for you guys in the podcast, but I feel like that would be, and like you'd get some random whale who would just pick the worst cards ever, and
Yeah,
then they wouldn't know how to play the good ones correctly, and then they'd get wrecked in the process. So it's just another piece of edge, it's just another edge. And then like knowing, okay, so if let's say it's you and you got 2 fish and they pick all, they're like, they really like clone for some weird reason, they really like disintegrate for some reason, and then you pick all the helpful cards that they don't really understand how to use that effectively. You're just gonna
yes.
like
So you pick like X-ray, you pick engineer, you pick cards that go well with those cards
yeah,
because you know you're going to
right,
combine them better.
yeah,
Yeah. So there's a huge edge to it either way. Oh, let's say you're playing against people who you think are really good players.
yeah,
Then you would decide, and let's say that you think that they're better than you are. Then when they pick certain cards, you will pick stuff that really, really doesn't combine well together, so that you're keeping it more like a hold'em game
right.
rather than a power-up game
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
feel you might get destroyed.
That's cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I think that'd be super fun. Um,
Yeah.
Okay, other missing qualities that you feel like are missing from the game of Power. I mean, I feel like just that whole thing we just touched on was probably kind of all of it wrapped into one, in my opinion. Is there anything? What other missing qualities do you think Power Up may have?
I think general basic humor is not there, but it's very, very, very hard to do right. And Hearthstone does it right, does it very well.
Right.
But for a semi-serious or serious game like poker,
Yeah.
it's going to be really, really hard to do.
So what you mean by that, just to clarify, is like in Hearthstone, you have like funny little pictures, and then there's kind of like a jokey effect on it, and then also when you play the card, they say something that's funny as well. I mean, so like, if you guys have ever played Hearthstone out there in podcast land, I know that they like what was what's like a classic Hearthstone sound, James. Here, I'm gonna put you on the spot now.
Uh, oh, there are so many. Let me think. Well, the classic would be Leroy Jenkins.
Right, yeah. And
The
then
second you hear that, you know that if you're low on health, you're dead. You know it.
as soon
You know
as,
it. It's always an end game card.
okay, here's how that always goes, right? You go, I mean, the thing is, I mean, if I can survive one more turn, I'm definitely gonna make it. He doesn't have enough points to win. Leroy. Oh, okay, never mind. GG. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, like so far from what we've seen released by Stars, it seems like they're trying to make like this sort of space age like galaxy arena
Hmm.
thing.
Very serious.
Yeah, and like it's kind of a gimmick, but it's kind of like serious, and like we've been watching those videos where they've got like the commentators, like who are actually in character commentating on a match, and it's a bit like you need to go one way or the other, I think, right?
I think I've just realized what they might be doing.
Okay.
Which like they have the characters,
Yeah.
and then they have their weaknesses and strengths and whatnot.
Yeah.
I feel like when you choose the character, they bring in power cards
Oh.
to the game.
What? Okay. So each character has their own power cards.
No, as in, so right. Listen here.
Yeah.
So let's say you are the bulldog character.
Right.
I can't remember what his strengths and weaknesses are,
Okay.
but let's say it says his strengths is, I don't know, analytics. I'm going to just go open it up quickly
Okay.
and go to, where is it? The
Here,
dog.
wait,
Right.
actually,
Okay.
You got it?
His name's Canine Legion. Right. So he says his play style is slow and thoughtful.
Okay.
Sometimes maddeningly so.
Okay.
Strengths good at spotting a bluff.
Okay.
Weaknesses second guesses himself too often.
Okay.
So if he has strengths like good at spotting a bluff,
Yeah.
then he will. If you pick that character, then the power cards in the game will be X-ray, and then something else and something else, right?
Okay.
So that you don't have that choosing of the cards at the beginning,
Okay.
right? So then all the characters come up onto the screen, and then those are the power cards that are going to be at play. It doesn't mean that he will automatically get X-ray at the beginning.
Yeah.
It just means that that's in the deck.
Okay. So kind of like like your suggestion of everyone picking the cards, but instead of doing it like that, you'll pick a character
You pick
that
a
brings
character,
those cards into the game.
Yeah, which I think is
it brings the cards for everyone, right? The same as you were suggesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, like these could be complete wild guesses, but even if we're completely wrong, I hope that these guys listen to that, because I can imagine that just being like crazy fun.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you're playing let's say they want it to be super quick, so that you do it, so that you just pick the character and therefore it has the card.
Yeah.
But in like the more tournament style things where you're watching, it's being streamed or whatever,
Yeah.
they should definitely have it so that you're picking the cards that are going to be used throughout the game
Cool.
for everyone.
Yeah. I dig that.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to how I think that the missing quality
Okay.
at the moment is there's little humor aspect.
Okay.
I just keep going back to and thinking about the game Jumanji. The old one. I haven't watched the new one.
Yeah, I don't want to see.
I presume it's going to be similar. Probably not as good, but similar.
Okay.
But board games are always about fun, and the whole jungle aspect. It had all like the cheeky monkeys going up to no
Right.
good,
And the bats and
yeah, and they're
venom.
like basically powers that are affecting the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
The monkeys, like I just thought of one, the power card. Let's call it. Say, I think they should be really fun when you play them. So, and they should be relating to the poker world as a whole.
Okay.
Just like Leroy Jenkins is a testament to a guy who was in World of Warcraft,
yeah.
which is like Hearthstone is a spin-off from that
Right.
that lore and series, right? So I think they should go along those lines. So, for example, a card like Showdown Monkey, where a bunch of monkeys come onto the bloody thing and start pulling the cards out and just plop it to the river, you know?
Okay,
like
yeah.
really stupid, funny things where you're just like
I mean,
hilarious.
and but if we sort of put aside the humor aspect, right? Effects that maybe don't necessarily need to be super funny, but an effect that would just be so like, oh, for fuck's sake, like I can't believe, you know, the more like I can't believe that shit happened, that is sort of vaguely predictable, or you can. So again, like we said, it's not game breaking, but it's like a big wow card that might, like, okay, so maybe that card costs 10 mana or something stupid, but the point cost equates to something that is incredibly powerful. So you can still predict whether or not they have Showdown Monkey or whatever we want to call this card. And you can still accurately create a strategy to try and prevent that from occurring. And maybe, like you said, if it's not one of the characters that starts with such a powerful card, you know that's another skill element, right? So if you know for a fact that that character doesn't have that kind of, none of the characters have that card in their quote-unquote deck, you know that you don't have to worry about it. But if they are, then you need to be concerned if they have more than 10 power points and they're acting a little bit strangely or a little bit cagey, because you know they're about to try and lay down some crazy move.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so let's just go back to the whole idea that I was saying about picking power cards to be played throughout the game.
Yeah.
So let's say you get your 2 power cards at the beginning, and then the third one comes out, and none of them combination well with each other.
Yeah.
But you remembered all the cards that have been picked, and therefore you know which combination you can be trying to get.
Right.
So you're burning a card like Disintegrate to get something else. This is all lots of tactics and fun regarding how the deck is built, just like Hearthstone.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like as soon as we start creeping over the line into that kind of territory, you're starting to get something that is super fun as a spectator sport, and like, again, like I think whenever you have a game where people are going, oh, you know, I never really win at that, it's all luck, you know, you just have to have the right cards, and then you go onto Twitch and you see some guy going, he can never make this play because I know that those cards aren't in play, and he played EMP last hand, so he only has a 14% chance of having, you know what I mean? And then you see somebody like make that call and then make a play accordingly. You're like, oh man, that is a sick player right there.
Yeah,
and
when you watch, like, for example, Kriparian, you know?
Yeah, from Hearthstone. He's a Hearthstone. He's a professional Hearthstone player, guys.
He specializes in a certain style of Hearthstone. It's called Arena. I'm not going to go too deeply into it.
Right.
But he's able to ascertain even though the amount of cards is like 500 cards, he's able to figure out pretty much exactly where he can be counted and how. And like, people love watching him because of his great understanding and knowledge of the game.
And just like half a stream of him just building a deck, or I mean, maybe that's going a bit overboard, but just sitting there and watching him choose, like, he's not even playing the game. People are like watching him build the deck, and that's fun as hell. It's like, it's really, and like after he sees, so basically how it works is you see a set of 3 random cards, and you pick the one that you think is best. And then after a certain number of goes, you can start to try and imagine what your deck looks like and what kind of strengths it might have. The dude is a genius. After the first couple cards that he selects, he immediately knows what kind of speed that he wants from his cards, what kind of effects he needs to combo well with each other.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I want to bring into this game. Right. If it's going to succeed, it needs that.
Fuck yeah, that would be super fun. I'm complete. I mean, so between okay. Yeah, I love it. I'm excited about it, actually. I think that would be a really fun element of the game. I mean, I guess that begs the question, how deep. You can't go as deep as Hearthstone, because I don't think you're going to have, if you have too many variables, I think a lot of people are going to be discouraged. So there's got to be like a really golden number of options that would still make it fun for a random. If somebody's like, "Oh, this looks like fun, I'm going to play the dollar games," you got to have it so it's not completely so overwhelming that, you know, because you know when people try and start playing Hearthstone, you have to want to play Hearthstone to get into it, I think. Yeah. Because, you know, like if I gave If I said, "Hey, do you want to try out some Hearthstone?" to my girlfriend, she'd give up just trying to make a deck. Like,
Hmm.
it would just be like, anyway, okay, cool. So cool, but I feel like there's some pretty good concepts there.
Well, I mean, they could do it so that so you know how in Hearthstone they have the wild format and then
Mm.
they have the seasonal format
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
So you could have it so that it's wild. All power cards could
yeah,
be available,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Then you're just getting used to all the power cards and you're playing it
yeah,
through that style.
yeah,
And it obviously it would be less people would want to play it. But if you made it just only so that it's $1 or $3,
right.
then there's obviously going to be enough action for it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there, and in that spot, you can learn all the combinations.
right,
You can learn
right,
how they go well together,
right.
and you can learn how to use each
Yeah.
power card. And
Well,
once you're ready for it,
yeah.
then you can go into
Higher stakes
picking
games.
out which ones you want
Right.
and
I mean,
whatnot.
okay, so like I guess there's something that you touched on really briefly there is so okay, right now we have a tab that's power up and right now there's a couple buying levels and that's it, right? But
Yep.
like in the not so distant future, I mean, I'm sure Stars has put a decent amount of money into developing power up. You know, I know it's an expensive thing developing this kind of thing and making it, ready and
Hmm.
doing, bug testing or whatever. But if they really wanted to get max value from that investment on creating this game and creating whatever, what they could do, I mean, so we had an article on our website published recently about the fact that they were going to release MTTs, or we found somewhere where they were suggesting that MTTs would be a part of the power up mix.
Yeah.
I'm imagining in the power up tab now you got heads up power up. Maybe that, like we said, maybe that's not a good idea, but I'm just spitballing here. They got
Hmm.
heads up power up. They got three-handed power up. They got MTT formats. They've got wild MTT formats that have all the cards that have always been released without any removals. And then
Hmm.
they have like arena format, like we were talking about. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then what PokerStars is doing is they're not just creating a gimmick or whatever people want to call it. They're creating an entire esport, and everybody has their little niche of expertise in the same way that in
Yeah.
Hearthstone there's lots of ways to play a game, but the mechanics of the game haven't changed. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just a case of like what people feel like they're strong at doing, or what people perceive that they think they're good at doing, or whether people think that the wild format is too crazy and nobody can ever beat it, and then you go on Twitch and see a guy that's killing it and you're like, hey, maybe there's something to this. It's making the game fun. And I feel like in
Yeah.
the poker industry right now there's too much focus on monetization. There's too much focus on players who want to maximize their rake back, which is also sort of to a certain degree killing in the industry.
Yeah.
And if we can create an ecosystem of people that just love to play a game like they have with Hearthstone, you're talking
Hmm.
about a really successful business. You're talking
Yeah.
about maximizing your investment from creating, you created a game. Now take it to the next level and make it into something that people want to play for fun as well as for profit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Like the fun aspect is the clearest missing quality.
Hmm.
I mean, the animations go to some degree to help with that, but I think that a lot of the fun games often don't have the best graphics.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
it's
no,
not.
I totally. I mean, like, I think the graphics on Hearthstone are amazing,
Mhm.
except but they're not like the game of Hearthstone. If you think about it, is really like kind of lame. You're just turning over cards. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
the animations give it that little edge that makes it like kind of like funny, and you see a new animation, and you kind of want to get a new card to see what the animation is and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so let's say there's the Elder Scrolls version of Hearthstone.
Right.
It's doing all right, but it's nowhere near as big.
Mm.
And I think the main reason behind that is because it's just too serious.
Right.
There's not the level of fun. It's just not as much fun in the game.
Yeah.
It's more about tactics and crushing everyone.
Right.
And like when you're streaming it on Twitch, it's more analytical and I mean, for some people, yeah, it's going to be more. They're going to enjoy it more because of the analytics involved.
Yeah.
But when I watch a stream, I kind of want to just relax and chill and watch someone doing something, and just show their talent without having to give a 30-minute rant on how they did it.
Well,
Like, it's just,
what was the name of that streamer that we really liked? He was he streamed Hearthstone, and he wasn't like the best player in the world or anything. He always did the Cho show. Do you remember?
oh yeah, Wow Hobbs.
Wow. Okay. Shout out to Wow Hobbs if you're listening. I mean, maybe we'll send this to you because you're getting a shout out. But me and James love watching this dude, and it wasn't because he was the world's greatest player. He wasn't a bad player either, but he was making these decks that were so off meta, and they were like nobody else was making these like crazy combinations. And actually, I guess overall, like mathematically speaking, he was like, there was like some of them were only winning 50% of the time, you know, or whatever. But he was getting these games where he was getting like infinity damage.
Yeah, complete overkill and just ridiculous.
And like to the point where I think there was one stream where he gave one of his cards so much attack damage that it went over like 1 million, and it started back from 0 again or some shit like that. Or
yeah,
it was the maximum
2.1 billion or something. Yeah.
And it
goes over that.
Right. And then like, you know, there's other examples in Hearthstone where you have like an OTK deck. That means 1 turn kill. So it's kind of like if you guys ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, the Exodia move. But in order to summon Exodia or whatever it was, you know, there were lots of things that had to occur in sequence. So it wasn't game breaking, but it was the killer move. It was the absolute like, oh my god, I can't believe that shit just happened move. But it wasn't game breaking. So, you know, bringing in some fun ways to play power up, like that's a really difficult thing to do. I imagine, you know, if I was a developer hearing this, I'd be like, well, yeah, now tell me how to do it. But you know, it's just opening up that dialogue, and I think there's some value to that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone's able to choose these cards, they still can't be broken. So, like your example with the zombie card,
right? You
can't just have that as a pick,
right?
Because then if you see that you're playing against someone that you know is really good, you just pick the broken card, so then you don't have any strategy aspect to it,
right?
Yeah. That is not something that you can bring in,
right.
But I think that some sort of deck creation process has to be in place, and it has to be so that everyone gets what you choose, rather than
right.
you get what you choose.
Yeah. But
because I mean, we all know that if you're playing for real money, the meta is always going to be very specific cards that you would pick.
Yeah.
That combine well.
Well, and there might be a hero that's always picked, you know. But
exactly.
But then I mean, the cool thing about what your suggestion is, where they the players bring in specific cards for everybody. The cool thing about that is if all 3 players want to pick the same dude, there's only going to be those cards in play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it might be the case that there might be a thing where whoever picks first is at a disadvantage, or you know, or maybe the first person to pick always picks the dude who has all the really good cards, but then you pick the secondary character that combines those cards really effectively.
Well, you could do it so that,
like, you can only pick one at a time.
You know, at the beginning of a Hearthstone game, you get the mulligan thing. You get these 4 cards that come up, and then you chuck away ones that you don't want at the beginning of the game.
And you get another draw.
You could do it so that at the beginning of the game, you've got the list of all the cards that you can put into the power card deck that you could end up getting.
Yeah.
And you pick them, and if someone has ended up picking the same cards as you, then they double out. So you get double the amount in there.
Yeah.
You could do it like that, or I think it would be much more fun if it's just in a big old circle in the middle, and you get to see who picks what.
Yeah, right. And I mean, come on, like, again, we go back to like Twitch, not because we think Twitch is the be all and end all, but because, like, if you want to make this an esport, it has to be something that people want to watch on Twitch. And like, watching some streamer get wrecked when like they get like the worst cards come out of the deck for them would just be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they're a really good player, they're gonna find an effective way of discarding that hand as fast as possible. And then the skill element shows through, and you have another edge. You have another way, and you go, oh my god, he started with like duplicates of like the same. He started with 3 EMP or 3 clones, and he still managed to come back and find. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's ever gonna happen, but you know what I'm saying.
I think that, look, so for example, if you had a whole list of cards to choose from,
Yeah.
that everyone was choosing for everyone.
Yeah.
If you had, you could have the option of putting in all sorts of booby trap cards.
Yeah.
You know, you could put it in so that, okay, I want it so that if you have that card in your hand, you're giving 100 chips to both players at the end of each card. Yeah. You know, so you have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, okay.
Or
Okay.
you do it so that,
dude, this reminds me so much of Hearthstone cards again, where you have the mines, and it shuffles the mines into the deck, and whenever you draw a mine out, you lose you lose some health.
Yeah, and maybe there's a power card that does something like that to the other people.
Yeah.
So you shuffle in mines.
Yeah.
So that's the power card that you pick.
So you could have a power card called Vampire or something, and as soon as it enters your hand, you steal 100 chips off each player or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be cool, but it's only like a one-time thing, so it gets shuffled in, but then also your opponent knows that you've only got 2 usable cards. Do you know what I mean? So exactly. As soon as you get dealt it's in play, and you steal a little bit of life. Except also your opponent knows you only have 2 power cards, so you're not going to have a 3-card combo in your hand.
Yep.
That's the kind of like dynamic play that I think yeah, we're trying to get at. I mean, shit, this podcast has been the bomb. I'm not even joking. We've been touching on some. This is our first try, James. I can write a novel. I can have a successful podcast. Okay. Okay. Well, tomorrow I'm gonna start my novel, and I'm gonna ace that first time too.
All right. What's it gonna be on?
Jane, okay, cool. What's it gonna be about?
Yeah.
It's gonna be called
A Miner's Life, right?
A Miner's Life for me.
Yeah.
I actually there was a while there where every time anybody said anything, we were saying, oh yeah, that's the story of my life, or like that's the title of my autobiography. Anyway, okay, so last topic we're gonna go on, because I feel like we've been hitting some really cool points so far, is buy-in level. So I guess this bit's gonna be kind of quick. We know that they're releasing 15 still, right, James?
Well, it says in the
PokerStars guide.
Yeah, something like how
guide?
to use it, and it shows. Oh no, the FAQs. Sorry,
yep.
It has the rake structure for all the games that are currently released.
Right,
and it shows the 15s as well.
If you guys want to learn more about that specific thingy, there's an article on our website as well, www.op.poker.com. It's also, there's going to be a link to the website, obviously, in our below if you're on YouTube, or if you're on our website, go to the homepage and find it.
Yeah, we'll just put a link under the YouTube video.
Cool.
So yeah, with buy-in levels, obviously it only makes sense for them to release higher buy-ins once there's enough people playing to buy in below it.
Right.
So right now, the 7s seem to be picking up, but it might just be because of the Christmas period.
Yeah.
But I would say that it doesn't really make much sense to be going over that until they've brought more players in.
Yeah.
Because there are very often times when I've been playing that I see the same 2 or 3 people in there, which means definitely. The player pool kind of has to be quite small at the moment.
Well, except it has to be said though, are we still in beta, aren't we, technically?
Yep.
So I mean, if people are concerned about liquidity in terms of player, the game is still in beta. They're not even actively advertising this game right now. So you know, I don't feel like that's going to be something that's going to be a problem.
No.
I would be very surprised if somebody at Stars didn't say already, okay guys, in 2018 we have to release the 15s, because that's been a couple months. You know what I mean? I would be really surprised if the 15s weren't a thing very soon. Don't quote me on that, but I mean, I feel like if I was an exec at Stars and I pumped a bunch of money into this game, and people were on the forum saying where are the 15s, where are the 30s, where you know.
Yeah. I mean, so right now, because the highest level is only $7, most people aren't really looking at it because there is no way to make big money.
Right.
Every other form of poker, even 2 to 7 triple draw, you know you can make big money on it, because occasionally Isildur one will play on there and make 100 grand or lose
Right.
500 grand.
I mean,
You know?
and with the possibility of an MTT, that's a way that you could win big money playing, relatively low stakes. So that's another way that they're going to try and,
Yeah.
uh, you know, get some sort of promise of winning a chunk.
Yeah. With the MTTs, I guess you could make so many different MTTs by different styles of MTT by showing the power cards that are going to be in play in that MTT.
Yeah, yeah,
So you could have end up having really awesome streamers
yeah.
who everyone likes pick certain combinations to make a really fun, crazy MTT.
Right. That would be so.
Yeah.
Oh man,
So
that
that
would be
it
so
would be
huge.
so you could have Nick's game, yeah. So
Yeah.
you would pick the cards for the MTT
Right.
that would run every I don't know every day at some
Right.
time.
Oh man, that's such a great
Yeah.
idea, dude. That would be
You're the
so
one
cool.
picking it for everyone, you
That
know?
would be such a fun element, and that's like another huge hype for stars. Like if I want to know what the deck is on
Hmm.
that day, you
Hmm.
just go to that bookmark you got saved, that like stars.com or whatever / like Nick's game
Yeah.
or James's game, and then you're like, oh man, I can't believe he put in that card. Like that's
Mhm.
crazy. Like that's gonna like, oh yeah, I'm amazing at playing. What do we call it? Monkey, flop monkey,
Showdown Monkey.
showdown monkey.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's played every time he puts showdown monkey. It always fucks me. I can't believe like you gotta, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh dude, that's a bomb idea. That would be so cool. And it's like, oh man, it would be such a draw because I know like okay, so I've been pretty outspoken about the fact I'm really into cryptocurrency
Hmm.
on stream. And like I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, but the reason it's fun is there's always scandal, there's always news, the prices, the Bitcoin is always tumbling and Bitcoin's always going to the moon and everyone's gonna buy Lambos and all this other shit, right? And
Yeah.
and but every day when you wake up, you're like, okay, cool, you're on your way to work, you turn on you open up your phone, and you're like, hey, I want to know what tonight's poker tournament is going to look like. Oh man, I can't believe you put those cards in. I'm not going to take part today. But you've got traffic, and if you're driving traffic on the web, you're making money. You know?
Well, I mean, you could do it so that, let's say, only once new power cards are released, would you change your style? So let's say Lex Veldhouse had the choice of his 25 power cards,
Yeah.
and he puts 9 of those into the MTT to be played.
Yeah.
And then that would run twice a week, let's
Right.
say, for the next year.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, he would pick those again, pick new ones out of the new ones that are released.
Right.
You know, I think that is enough fun in itself because you would look through the list. So let's say, oh, I want to play Xbox's game today. Or I want to play Jamie Staples' selection.
Yeah.
And then you would only play the ones that you liked, or you would sometimes play, oh, okay, I want to play this one today. I want to
Yeah,
play that
right.
one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you have the same kind of thing in Hearthstone. You're like, oh, arena's not my thing. That's not my thing. I just want to play. You could pick and choose whatever you feel like was your strongest, and that adds another fun element.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, and then maybe part of it is the pro or whatever who made the deck. He takes part in it, and if you bust him, there's a bounty on their head as well, and something like that, right?
Yeah, it has to be something like that.
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, or maybe the pro, if you bust that pro that week, you get to swap out one of his cards for next week or something crazy,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
so many options.
but there's just so many.
Crazy.
There's so many cool ways to do that, and people people would be hyped to take part.
Yeah.
Which is something that's missing, I think. So that goes back. That's a missing quality. Why don't we have MTTs that I make, James? Where is
Yeah.
Nick's game? That's a missing quality.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, Okay, so actually, I was about to ask you what 9 cards would you put in your deck, and I realized there's only 9
There are
cards.
only 9 cards.
I don't know. I guess disintegrate, engineer, intel.
Let's say you could only pick for
3.
Well, if it's only 3, then
It would always.
you're
be,
always going to have the same.
It
3.
would always be engineer.
It'd be boring, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. That's a stupid question anyway, because we're instantly gonna dump clone. So
I would have if I could only have 3 cards,
Yeah.
the best combination I think would be
Engineer.
engineer, reload, and EMP.
Oh, interesting. You didn't have upgrade in that list.
No, don't need upgrade. Reload's slightly better.
Yeah, I think reload is slightly better because there are certain situations when you know you're up against ace high and you just got to ping one
Yeah.
pair, and so you can fire off both and then get to return. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. Okay, but okay, so sorry, buying levels, guys. So we know that the 15s are coming. We want to see them. We want to see high stakes MTTs. We want to see higher stakes cash games.
Yeah.
But we don't have any additional news. But we know it's on the horizon, and we know it's coming.
Well, as soon as they release like some form of home game or whatever, then the stakes could become obscene.
Oh yeah,
Like you could, in some way, we could end up going to Vegas and hustling people for,
yeah,
$5,000 games.
yeah.
If we wanted to.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. This isn't really missing qualities, but I think as a community, as OP Poker is growing quite organically, having a home games facility would be awesome for our player pool. So yeah, that's just one more thing we're gonna stick in there at the end. Okay, James.
Nick,
Shit, man. Podcast 1.
it was good.
It was
I
fucking
think we
good.
should do.
I
We should
loved
probably
it.
think about doing another one.
I think we should definitely do more of these. I thought I had a great time just doing this today, and I feel like there were some really cool ideas we got out there. I guess what we want to do is do a podcast every couple months, so there's like a little bit more development because
I think we
we hit
should.
on a lot of things just then.
I think we should basically probably do a podcast when we hear something amazing's coming out.
Right. Yeah.
Each time,
Yeah.
and then we can just basically hype over everything.
Just hype. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay. Rest assured, all of you out there listening in podcast land, the developers of Power Up who are in contact with are going to hear this. So if you love what we're talking about, tell us in comments. Let us know what you think. If you hate what we're saying, that's fine too. If you love it, that's cool. Whatever. But this is a voice that is being heard. So if you like Power Up or you hate Power Up or whatever, tell us what you think, and more of what you say can filter down into the thought pool. I guess that's all for today. If you haven't done so already, check out our website, www.op.poker.com. I will see you guys on stream in about an hour. I guess we're going to put this podcast out pretty quickly, so maybe that's going to be the wrong timing. But anything else you want to add today, James?
No, just to make sure that you're back fine-tuned and ready to go, because you had a week, 2 weeks off.
Yeah. I'm feeling a little bit rusty, so you're probably gonna see a couple small mistakes. But I mean, what am I
Only
talking
tiny
about?
ones.
What am I talking about? I'm gonna play perfect today. Anyway, guys, we love you very much. Thank you for joining us today. Let us know if you enjoyed the podcast. I think we had a pretty good time. To the developers out there, we love you guys too. Thank you for making such a cool game. We'd love for you to take on some of the suggestions today, and if you like what you hear, let us know, because that's cool too. If you're excited about what we're excited about, that'd be fun. That's all for today, guys. Thank you very much. Podcast done. Boom.
Boom.